In this episode of the unknown side of WoW, we'll be going over the old gods and the many things connected to them. We all know kobolds, and we all know their famous line, "You know, take candle." But do you know why they are so protective of their candles? Well, it first requires me going over quickly a little theoretical experiment called the 5 monkeys experiment. 5 monkeys are put into an enclosure with a ladder in the center and bananas hanging over it. If any monkey was trying to go to the top, they would all be sprayed with cold water. Because of this, the monkeys learned that no one is allowed to go up because bad stuff will happen. Then the researchers would replace the monkeys one at a time. If any of the new monkeys tried to go up, the others would then stop them, warning of the dangers if they tried to climb the ladder and just kind of pull them down. And the researchers kept replacing them one by one until all of the monkeys who were present know to never go up the ladder and that it is dangerous. Even though at this point, none of the monkeys know what happens if you go up the ladder, and the water has long since been turned off, they still prevent others from performing the same action. Now, how does this relate to the kobolds? Well, during Legion, players were able to do a side quest within High Mountain, and this quest line had us dealing with the blue wax kobolds. And just like the kobolds we know, they have an obsession with their candles. But these kobolds have good reason. For within the cave, you find an altar of the candles, and if you dare blow them out, a large void-like being called the Devourer Darkness appears from within the shadows and attacks you. We learn more about this from Kit Brightwick, a kobold within the cave. I know stop candle making, unless you want story? Kobolds live here a long time, make home in nooks, catch rats, sometimes eat them, dig for treasures, trade with harpies. They like shinies, we like wax, fresh from ear is best. One day Drogbar come in, say cave is theirs. They smash and scare. We take candles and hide. Drogbar big and stupid. They have cave but no have candle. Darkness finds them. Darkness follows them. Darkness swallows them whole. We come back. We have candles. Cave ours again. Candles keep us safe. This lines up well with a few other creatures of the old gods, being that of Ulganeth, a minion sent by the old gods to capture High Mountain. Trapped there with wards by Hul High Mountain, eventually breaking free as the wards weaken, but was beaten by the Horde in the High Mountain recruitment quest, and even more so by the Darkness in Hearthstone, a card that when summoned slumbers as candles keep it at bay. But if all 3 candles are drawn and extinguished, it is then summoned, a massive destructive beast that can tear through enemies. So what does this have to do with the 5 monkeys? Well, while the Blue Wax Kobolds still have to worry about the impending Void Beast because of the unique situation of High Mountain, its caves apparently filled with the beings of the old gods. The rest of Azeroth does not. People are mostly free to wander caves without worry of being attacked by the Void. Something that was likely not as common during the Black Empire's reign, or for a while afterwards. And the kobolds are an ancient race, so they still pass down the requirement to wear candles within their caves, fearing the dangers that lurk in the shadows, ready to tear their minds and souls to shreds, knowing that if I take off my candle, I die. Even if the danger is no longer there anymore, the kobolds in other parts of the world still keep with the tradition, even if they don't actually know why they do it. We all know the old gods of Azeroth, Cthulhu the Eye, Yogg-Saron the Maw, Y'Shaarj the Head, and N'Zoth the Tendril. However, there has always been hints at a hidden 5th old god within Azeroth, including Xal'atath, or better known as Naifu by the community, possibly having been one as well. However, come Chronicles Volume 3, we were given a rather amazing looking page showing some rather simple and yet wonderful artwork of the old gods. In the bottom right, you can see N'Zoth, his tendrils leading into a watery detail, then connecting to a massive pillar of various old god structures, including many insects and Karaji, eventually leading to Cthulhu within the center. Returning back down the left side, it leads to a massive rock and cliffs and jagged stone, maybe even ice, until we reach Yogg-Saron. Going up from it, we get more insects and twisted buildings before reaching Y'Shaarj, and its massive serpent-like body crawling all the way up to the page. But then the real big thing is in the top right. First off, we start with a massive Cthulhu-like head straight out of H.P. Lovecraft, a pair of wings and massive amounts of tendrils. Until you look closer, these are not tendrils, and actually vines. Covered in leaves, and these tendrils are surrounding piles upon piles of skeletons. What could this mean? Well, it could mean there might be a hidden old god, one that has powers over both life, represented by nature, and death, represented by the skulls. And while this is just a minor detail in one page of Chronicles, meaning it could just be a mistake, or mean nothing, it does seem odd that they would add this detail when they could have added literally anything else. A tiny detail that many have missed, but could lead to a massive revelation within the Old Gods lore on Azeroth. Next, we'll talk about the continents of Azeroth. Originally, Azeroth had one massive continent. This continent included all of the land masses of Azeroth we know today, although it is confirmed that while there were more land masses, this one was the largest. During the War of the Ancients, the Well of Eternity in the center, a hole filled with the planet's blood that was created when the Titans tore Y'Shaarj out of the crust, was destroyed. This massive world-shattering explosion is what created the Azeroth we know of today. Huge amounts of land was destroyed, pushed below the sea, and yet somehow the land does not make sense. The shapes of the land seem far too oddly shaped. Chunks of land that should not have collapsed seemingly did, and weird parts of chunks of land, islands near the center that somehow survived. Well, these landscapes surviving are likely thanks to the Old Gods. See, the Old Gods are like trees. Their main bodies sit at the center, but their tendrils, their roots, they seep deep into the planet, and very far too. The Emerald Nightmare, for example, exists because of these tendrils. Yogg-Saron, all the way in the north of Ulduar, was able to reach the newly created World Tree within Grizzly Hills, and because of this, it was granted a way into the Emerald Dream. And all of the Old Gods have these roots. We have this nice map from Chronicles that details the territories that each Old God controlled. This map giving us some insight into where the Old God's roots may have been able to expand, and they are awfully close to the general shape of the different continents, especially since this map is the visual before the Old Gods were able to be captured and contain the Elemental Lords, allowing them to expand into their territory. And these roots may have been the main reason, or at least helped, in holding the continents we know together, which, funny enough, the dead Old God Y'Shaarj had the territory that lost the most amount of land. While the living Old God's roots were able to hold together most if not all the territory, the dead Old God Y'Shaarj's roots were only able to hold together small pieces of land. While this is not confirmed, it seems pretty likely this is one of the reasons why the land still exists. There is 4 known Old Gods in Azeroth. Cthulhu, who was revealed and fought in Vanilla, and Yogg-Saron, who was revealed and then fought within Wrath of the Lich King. However, the same cannot be said for the other 2, as they have a much more troubled history. N'Zoth was introduced to us in Cataclysm as the big bad behind a ton of stuff in Azeroth, like the Naga and Deathwing. We actually would not get to see it until 4 expansions later with the final patch of BFA in 8.3, finally revealing the Old God's appearance to players. Outside, of course, the tiny border art that we mentioned before within the Chronicles only a year before. However, we did get to see it non-canonically beforehand, with it having appeared in Hearthstone's Whisper of the Old Gods expansion in 2016. While not official at the time, as even Ben Brode himself said, we collaborated a lot. One of the lead artists on WoW actually did the illustrations for the Hearthstone card. Hard to say what N'Zoth would look like if it ever appears in WoW, but it's intended to be a canonical image of it, yes. It seems the WoW team loved how they made it look so much they decided to stick with Hearthstone's artwork making it official, and years later chose to make N'Zoth look that way in WoW. And yet even worse in the final Old God Y'Shaarj. Revealed in the expansion Mists of Pandaria, however, already dead when he was revealed, killed by the Titans eons ago. Outside of the tiny bit of artwork from the Border of the Chronicles page, we actually have no canonical appearance for this Old God. Nothing. We heard about it, but were never shown an appearance. Although there is a mural within the Heart of Fear some theorize was supposed to be Y'Shaarj, it looks too much like a generic Naraki, like the one seen in Darkshore, to be that of an Old God. Confirmed later when it got the exact same treatment as N'Zoth. In 2016, the Whispers of the Old God expansions released, and with it, the 4 Old Gods got their own cards, Y'Shaarj giving it a full appearance. And while we never got an official model in-game to confirm this being its appearance, we do have a little art from Chronicles which seemingly confirms this is the appearance they're sticking with. Confirming that the mural in the Heart of Fear, or the mural in the secret Calaxy Cave, is not in fact Y'Shaarj, or the stained glass within Ulduar. Even more so when he would appear again in Hearthstone's second Old God expansion, Madness at the Darkmoon Fair. For reference, Hearthstone, while based in the Warcraft universe, anything within the game is non-canon by default. But some things do come over to WoW anyway, such as the Tortolling, the new members of the Explorers League, and Patches the Pirate. Although the teams do apparently talk to each other and collaborate in order to bring exciting things into the world of Warcraft, A good example being the Mean Streets of Gadgetzan expansion, which is canonically how this city looks now. However, we simply can't see that in-game, as the Azeroth we have is still stuck in the Cataclysm era. During the rise of the Horde, the Arakoa deviated from the path of their devotion to the gods Rukmar, Anzu, and Seath that were set for them, unable to defend themselves from the Sethic cult-gained power, bringing their people into a twisted, dark race. It came to them in their dreams, promising them powers beyond the cosmos, an old god, who then they came to worship, with them even thinking the Summit of Murmur to be the doing of their old god master. However, this ended up being their downfall. Coming out of the shadows, they attacked the Horde, seeing the power it was gaining, and with this threat, Gul'dan destroyed their camps and corrupted their people. Now, mad with corruption, they sought to summon their god, using a mix of fel magics of Shadowmoon and their own dark power. They seek to summon into the world, which, if successful, would have led to the destruction on all life in the Outland. Until a random nobody leveling stops the entire operation, banishing the old god back to where it came. Rather uneventful, right? While this is seemingly the only appearance of an old god on Draenor, one that is summoned and not there naturally, there is a possibility at Draenor having had an old god. Within Shadowmoon Valley, you can find an ooze called the Black Blood of Draenor. These blobs can fuse into much larger Draenor blood terrors, but the important part is the name, Black Blood of Draenor, very similar to the Black Blood of Yogg-Saron, which is Serenite, the blood of the old god Yogg-Saron. Is it possible Draenor once had an old god within Shadowmoon Valley? And before we go, there's one final thing to mention. The possible return of the old gods. While the old gods we know of so far have all died, the devs themselves have been vague about their actual death or not, since they've gone back and forth saying if they are permanently dead or not, with even saying they are outside of the cycle of death. They are thought manifested, and you can't kill thoughts. We even see with Y'Shaarj, its influence living for eons after its death, with Yogg-Saron still able to influence and even take control of those within Ulduar after its death, and Cthulhu, who was to be resurrected come Cataclysm. And then there was N'Zoth, who was killed, but many things hint at the old god having planned his death from the start. Too much stuff lines up, and comes off as too suspicious. 2, leaving the dagger that could lead to his death purposefully with his enemies, seemingly its only use being to kill him. It's almost too perfect. Now, the question is this on purpose for a possible return of the Black Empire? Or was this just horrible writing of a case of the devs needing a Deus Ex Machina in order to kill him? Honestly, it could go either way, but the precedent is set, and speculations are not baseless. Of course, alternatively, if they want to explore old gods more without bringing them back to life, we could always go to another Black Empire, as we've seen worlds taken by the corruption of the old gods, like the ones Sargeras destroyed, and the ones we see during the Star Augur fight within the Nighthold. An epic scene that may hint at possible future expansions, a good way to let us experience an old god-ruled world without having to do time shenanigans again, or destroy Azeroth.